If you sit behind the screen long enough, you're gonna kill a player's character, whether it's from a poorly timed crit, terrible death saves, or your player forgetting that actions have consequences. Character death is a part of D&D, but having a hero tragically or comically die at the table can be difficult to navigate, both for new and experienced game masters. In today's video, I want to give you tips for handling the darker side of tabletop, both before and after their untimely demise. Without further ado, let's get started. Dungeon Masters have a reputation for being bloodthirsty and ruthless, feeding on player tears and burned character sheets. In truth, every DM runs their game differently, and that includes how lethal the combat will be. While some DMs really put their players through the ringer, killing off characters all the time, others might run campaigns where nobody ever dies, and the tension instead comes from the story consequences of a bad bit of fighting. How lethal your game is going to be run is something that you can establish early on in Session 0. Just like how different DMs will enjoy different levels of danger, so too will players. Making sure the entire party is on the same page will keep it from getting a little awkward when you drop the rogue in Session 1. It'll also make it more likely that they put some thought into a backup character if they know the chances of death are a little bit higher in your game. After a certain level, death in D&D can start to feel a little more like a suggestion than a pivotal consequence. Between Revivify, Reincarnate, Raise Dead, and other spells that'll get you back on your feet even after your third death save, the stakes in higher level D&D games can sometimes start to feel a little less dire. For this reason, a lot of DMs choose to change the game's revival mechanics by either banning certain spells or making the act of bringing someone back just a little bit more involved than using a spell slot in a diamond. It is perfectly fine to mess with the revival rules to fit your liking, but make sure that your players know these changes too. It won't feel great for your party cleric to learn the Revivify they saved the diamond for isn't going to actually work when the party ranger goes down. Communicating any changes clearly and before they're needed will make sure that when death does happen, everyone understands their options, or lack of, evenly. Though it may seem a little bit silly, a character dying can be an emotional moment for your player. Some groups might burn through characters in really death-heavy games, while others are playing D&D more for rolling dice and killing monsters than they are for the role-playing aspects. But a lot of players get really invested in their characters, putting a lot of time and energy into not just playing them at the table, but coming up with their backstory, motivations, and growth. So when a character falls in D&D, some players will take it much harder than others. Taking a moment either during or after the game to reach out and see how your player is feeling about their character's death is always good practice as a DM. Beyond just making sure they're doing alright emotionally, it's good to see where their head is at game-wise. Do they feel like the death was cheap? Are they worried about unresolved plot lines? Do they already have a backup character in mind? The last thing you want is for them to worry about things or be frustrated by the results in a vacuum, without any idea of your own thoughts or aspects of the situation that they might have missed. Taking the time to chat and process their character's passing will help both you and the player get on the same page and move forward together. Losing a character can be just as emotional for the other members of the party too. Especially for campaigns that have been going on for a while, your players will have lots of memories of the Fallen, from the time they rolled 3 nat 1s in a row and ended up ruining the Queen's royal banquet, to their epic final spell that defeated the party's greatest nemesis. In the moments following the character's death, things might be a bit hectic between trying to figure out how do I get this player back in the game and what happens now that one of the party is dead. But don't forget to give your players a chance to grieve in character. Not only will this give them closure, but it can also lead to some really great role-playing moments. Death often changes people, and you'd be doing your players a disservice not giving them a chance to explore what this change would mean for their character. It'll also be a really good send-off for the player whose character passed on, as they'll get a chance to see the party say their goodbyes and then move forward with whatever new, probably insane character they decide to roll up. Not every death needs to have an elaborate in-game funeral. If the party's druid dies in Session 1 because they slipped off a rope bridge to their death, that's probably more of a comedy than a tragedy. But don't forget to let your players grieve when someone goes down in the party if they need it. For a lot of dungeon masters, at least those who obsess over it like me, keeping the story's continuity clean and sensible is something that they take pride in. Having random monsters pop in or crazy goofs that break immersion is definitely fun for some groups, but not everyone will want to run a game where events don't logically play out. So when a character dies, that creates a problem for those dungeon masters who value continuity. How do I drop a new character into the middle of the action without it feeling out of the blue? If you find yourself in a scenario where a player's character dies mid-session, try to shut off that part of your brain for a moment and get them back into the action as quickly as possible. Even if your reasons for their new druid wandering along feel forced or strange, D&D is a game, and your player still deserves to play when at the table. Making them wait a little bit for a natural break isn't a bad idea. They'll probably need some time to figure out their new character anyway. But having them wait around for hours or even multiple sessions is going to ruin what was otherwise going to be a fun night of gaming for them. If you don't want to drop a new party member in mid-session, or your player needs more time to figure out who they'll be playing next, they can always take over a party NPC or be given a temporary character to play that fits the group's current objective. Maybe one of the cultists has a change of heart, or there's a prisoner in the dragon's lair that they can free. Anything to keep them from having to sit on the sidelines for 2 more hours while everyone else is having fun. As your player starts creating their new character, one of the easiest ways to get them back into the narrative is to tie them directly into the story. Having their goals already aligned with that of the party will help answer the question of, why did we take on this new ranger anyway? You still want to give them the freedom to come up with their own backstory and direction, but no matter what they choose, you can almost always find a way to relate it to the current quest, even indirectly. For example, you could add an important artifact that player needs to get for their backstory into the treasure hoard of the dragon that your party is after. Now they have a reason to team up. Or if your party is currently creeping through a vampire's haunted manor, maybe their new wizard is being held in the dungeon for trying to break into the monster's library to get some magical secrets. It could even be as simple as having the new player be a friend of the quest giver, sent as extra aid to assist the group. Giving them even a small reason for being there will help keep the party feeling cohesive in-game. There are a lot of DMs out there who, when there's a death in the party, start their new character at a lower level than the rest of the group, even sometimes back at level 1. There could be a lot of reasons for doing this. Maybe they feel like that new character hasn't earned those levels the way the rest of the party has. Or maybe they're punishing that player for dying. I'm not the D&D police. As long as everybody's having fun, I won't tell you how to play. But my advice would be that when a character dies, let their new one come back at the same level as the rest of the party. Having one character who's significantly weaker than all the rest will make running combat tougher, as you have to find the right balance between strong enough to challenge the group and not too strong that they destroy the weaker player. It also won't be fun for that one player to watch as all of their friends are casting stronger spells and dealing more damage, knowing that the only way they're going to catch up is that everyone else dies. And as a punishment, well, having your character die is a punishment for bad decisions or unlucky dice rolls. You don't need to pile on even further by hamstringing their new character. No matter how you slice it, I think it'll be more fun for your whole party if everyone stays on the same level. And in the end, that's the whole point of playing. Every Dungeon Master is going to react differently to killing a character for the first time. Some might find it exciting that the game was shaken up, while others might be mortified and feel bad that it took away that player's creation. In the immediate aftermath of a character biting the dust, the urge to retcon what happened and bring back their beloved paladin or sorcerer might be strong, but unless you made some sort of very serious rules error, I suggest you ride out those feelings and resist the desire to take it all back. First off, part of the allure of D&D is that anything can happen, including character deaths. If characters only died cinematic deaths that were preordained by the DM and the player, then the game would start to lose some of the random charm that makes it interesting. Knowing that if the dice aren't in your favor, or if you make the wrong choices, there could be real consequences is what sets tabletop games apart from things like a video game, where even the most free-form games are still limited by their programming. Second, having character deaths on the table gives combat real stakes. That's not to say someone has to drop every time initiative is rolled, but knowing that their characters' lives are on the line will make your players sweat just a little bit more when going up against challenging and dangerous foes. It'll also make their victories even sweeter when they know that there is a serious chance things could have gone very far sideways. And finally, death can enhance any story. Sounds kind of cliche, but it's true that nothing quite motivates the party like avenging the fallen, and nothing makes the threats they're facing feel more real than someone losing their life. Of course, not every party will want death in their games, and you and your players can have a very enjoyable game without anyone tearing up their character sheet. But if a player drops and you feel the urge to have a god come down and spare them, my advice would be to let it stand and watch how things unfold afterwards. You may just find that it benefits your game in the long run. Those are my tips for dealing with character death in D&D. Death is a part of the game, and while you don't want to go overboard with it, embracing that can happen will make you a better DM and your campaigns even more fun for your players. I doubt I have the highest kill count of anyone watching though, so I'd love to hear your own tips in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you'd leave a like and consider subscribing to the Bard's College. I make videos like these every week with tips for DMing, monster breakdowns, and resources that you can use in your own games. So if you like this one, stick around. But for now, good luck, and remember, crit your players.